You've brought us, well, quite a stack of sources today. It looks like we're digging into the immediate legislative push, state and national, to memorialize Charlie Kirk after his death.
That's right. We've got bill drafts, resolutions, even some really specific architectural details.
Right.
And our goal today, for you, the listener, is really a deep dive, but maybe from a slightly different angle.
Yep.
We're going to try and set aside the personalities, the politics,
Okay.
and instead focus just on the language,
Yeah.
the specific words, the structure of these proposals, these sources themselves. We want to understand how public memory is being, actively shaped, almost codified right after the fact.
So a study in the mechanics of memorialization, basically. How fast it happened, how specific it got. Okay, let's unpack this. And I guess we have to start in Oklahoma. That seems to be where the most granular detail is.
Yeah, Oklahoma really gives us the most concrete material to analyze. The main figure pushing this seems to be State Senator Shane Jett. He's a Republican, chairs the Oklahoma Freedom Caucus, and he put forward this package, 3 key measures, quickly, aiming for the session starting in February.
3 measures, and they're specific, you said, like Senate Bill 1188. That's the one proposing Charlie Kirk Free Speech Day.
Exactly. SB 1188. It sets the date as October 14th, which was Kirk's birthday.
His birthday, okay.
But what really jumps out, I think, is the reason given in the bill. The language used isn't your standard sort of civic honorific stuff. It explicitly says the day is to honor Kirk's courage and faith, his contributions to American discourse, faith, and freedom, and then this is the key bit to commemorate his ultimate sacrifice for these principles.
Ultimate sacrifice. Wow. Okay, so in a bill creating a holiday on his birthday, they're using language typically associated with martyrdom or dying for a cause.
Precisely. It immediately frames his life and death within that specific, very elevated narrative, linking the birth date to the idea of sacrifice.
That definitely sets a tone.
It does. It's preloading the meaning, you could say. But okay, so if SB 1188 sets the date, the next one, Senate Bill 1187, tries to lock down the place. And the image.
Ah, right. This is the one about the memorial plazas.
Yes. And this one is, well, it's kind of astonishingly detailed. It would require every public university in the state.
Every single one.
Every single one, according to the draft, to build a Charlie Kirk Memorial Plaza.
That's a huge mandate. Statewide public art, essentially, but it gets even more specific, right, with the actual statues.
It does. The bill actually tries to dictate the art. It says universities have to pick one of only 2 specific statue designs.
Only 2 choices. What are they?
Okay, so option 1 is described as Kirk sitting at a table, but with an empty chair opposite him.
Empty chair.
And option 2 is Kirk with his wife, and they're holding their children.
Let's pause on that for a second. Mandating specific statue designs in state law feels unusual. Why do that? What's the message with those 2 specific options?
Well, if you think about the empty chair, that's a pretty powerful symbol, right?
Yeah.
It sort of suggests an invitation, maybe an invitation to debate, to engage with his ideas, maybe fill the empty seat, intellectually speaking.
So it frames his legacy as about dialogue, maybe challenging ideas?
That seems to be the suggestion, yeah. It creates this physical prompt for engagement. Sit down, think, discuss.
Okay. And the other option, the family statue.
That sends a completely different message, doesn't it? Kirk with his wife and children. That immediately shifts the focus. It's about, family values, faith, personal legacy, tradition.
Much more personal, less intellectual or confrontational.
Exactly. It anchors his public image in, let's say, domestic and religious values. So by limiting the choice to only these 2 very carefully curated options.
The legislation is trying to control the narrative. Force the universities to pick between Kirk the debater or Kirk the family man as the official memory.
That's how it reads. It's an attempt to really narrow the possible interpretations right from the start. The scale every campus, plus the artistic specificity, it shows a very deliberate effort to shape the physical environment, the campus culture.
And it doesn't stop with the statues, right? The bill also dictates the text on the plaques.
Yes, exactly. The level of detail continues right down to the words.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because mandating specific words feels even more direct in shaping memory. What does SB 1187 say the plaques have to include?
You're right. It's very direct. The sources indicate the plaques must describe Kirk using a specific list of terms. And these are pretty loaded descriptions.
Like what?
Okay, the list includes a voice of a generation, modern civil rights leader, vocal Christian, martyr for truth and faith, and free speech advocate.
Wow, okay. Modern civil rights leader. And martyr for truth and faith, mandated by law on state property.
Yes. Think about the weight of those phrases. Modern civil rights leader deliberately connects him to, well, a specific and powerful historical movement. And martyr, again, elevates his death to something profoundly significant, almost sacred.
It's trying to instantly place him in a particular historical category.
And that idea, the martyrdom theme, it gets reinforced in Senator Jett's third measure. This one's a resolution, SCR 13.
Okay, so maybe just quickly for you listening, what's the difference between a Senate bill, like the first two, and a Senate concurrent resolution like this one?
Good point. So the Senate bills, the SBs, if passed, they become actual law. They create the holiday, they mandate the plazas. A Senate concurrent resolution, an SCR, isn't law. It's more like a formal statement of opinion or position by the legislature. It doesn't do anything legally, but it puts the legislature's view on the official record.
Got it. So SCR 13 is Oklahoma's legislature officially stating its view on Kirk. What does it say?
It basically doubles down on the martyrdom language. It formally recognizes Kirk as, and this is the direct language, a martyr for truth, faith, and the First Amendment.
Martyr.
Whose courage in the face of adversity and unwavering devotion to Jesus Christ and the Christian faith has left an indelible mark on the soul of our nation.
So across three different legislative tools, the holiday bill, the plaza bill, the resolution, there's this consistent drumbeat, martyr, ultimate sacrifice. It seems very coordinated.
It really does. It suggests a deliberate strategy, not just to remember him, but to define the meaning of his death, using the authority and permanence of legislative language.
Trying to establish that interpretation immediately before maybe other views can emerge?
That seems to be the function, yes. Institutionalizing one specific, highly elevated narrative very quickly.
Now, you mentioned Senator Jett was the main driver here, but were there other efforts in Oklahoma? Did everyone agree on this specific approach?
Well, not entirely. There was another Republican state senator, Ally Seifried. She filed a separate resolution.
Okay, what did hers say?
It also honored Kirk, but the language was, let's say, different. It's focused more broadly on his faith, leadership, and devotion to America's youth. And it sort of reaffirmed general principles like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
So still honoring him, but maybe less intense, less focused on martyrdom and specific imagery.
Definitely less prescriptive, yeah.
Yeah.
It reads more like a general tribute, less like an attempt to carve a very specific narrative into stone or, well, bronze.
Interesting. And there was also disagreement about the date itself, wasn't there? Jett's bill picked October 14th, the birthday.
Right, for the Free Speech Day.
Which seems slightly counterintuitive if the main justification is commemorating his ultimate sacrifice.
It does highlight attention.
Yeah.
Why the birthday if the focus is sacrifice? And this actually connects to an earlier push from within the Oklahoma Republican Party itself. Their state committee had previously passed their own resolution.
Before Jett's bills.
Yes, earlier. And they were urging lawmakers to make September 10th the actual date Kirk died a state holiday.
Ah, okay. So there's a direct conflict there. Jett's bill proposes October 14th, his birthday, while the state party apparatus had initially suggested September 10th, the date of death.
Exactly. And that choice, it's not just administrative, it signals a different kind of commemoration.
How so?
Well, September 10th, the date of death, really centers the event itself. The loss, the sacrifice, the tragedy, perhaps. October 14th, the birthday, shifts the focus. It celebrates his life, the start of things, maybe the continuation of his movement or ideas.
So memorializing the death versus celebrating the life and mission.
It's a subtle but really fundamental difference in how you frame someone's legacy for the future. One looks back at the ending, the other looks perhaps forward from the beginning.
That difference tells you a lot about the intended message. All right, let's shift gears now away from the very specific Oklahoma details and look at the national picture. How did things play out in Washington, D.C.? The sources mention a House resolution.
They do. The U.S. House acted very quickly, too, passing a Republican-sponsored resolution to honor Kirk.
So, similar goal, honoring him.
Similar goal, yes. But the dynamic in D.C. was immediately different. While Oklahoma was focused on, designing statues and mandating plaque language.
The fight in D.C. was more immediately about the core narrative itself.
Exactly. The division was instant and recorded. The resolution passed. But the sources highlight the opposition, specifically mentioning Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
A prominent progressive voice opposing it. What was her argument, according to the record?
Her objection wasn't about, the wording on a plaque or the choice of date. It was fundamental. She challenged the very premise of honoring him in that way.
Okay.
Her recorded statement argued that Kirk's, and I'm pulling the language here, Rhetoric and beliefs were ignorant and sought to disenfranchise millions of Americans.
Strong language.
Far from working tirelessly to promote unity, as asserted by the majority in this resolution. So it was a direct challenge to the positive framing presented by the resolution's supporters.
So you have this contrast. Oklahoma lawmakers are meticulously crafting permanent physical and textual memorials, really trying to build a lasting narrative on the ground.
Right, using the tools of state law, architecture, mandated language.
While at the federal level, the act of memorialization itself immediately becomes a platform for debating the figure's fundamental legacy and impact, documenting that deep political divide in the official congressional record.
That's a great way to put it. The state efforts aim for durable, long-term narrative shaping through concrete actions. The federal action, while symbolic, instantly reflected the existing intense political conflicts surrounding Kirk himself. It documented the divide more than it built a unified memory.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? We've gone through statue designs, plaque language, conflicting dates, state resolutions, federal debates.
I think what you have now is a pretty clear map, right? A map of how public memory can be actively constructed, legislated, and contested, especially in the immediate aftermath of a significant event. In Oklahoma, we see this incredibly detailed, almost prescriptive effort to build a very specific, enduring narrative, Kirk, as martyr, as civil rights leader, using the power of state law to mandate art and language.
Set it in stone, literally.
Literally. Whereas nationally, the attempt at memorialization immediately became part of the ongoing political battle, highlighting the deep divisions over who he was and what he represented. It shows the speed and, frankly, the determination involved when political actors use the state's machinery to try and cement a particular legacy.
It really underscores how legislative language itself becomes a tool for historical interpretation.
Absolutely. The words chosen, the symbols mandated, they're doing a lot of heavy lifting, trying to establish a kind of official history by decree.
And, thinking back on those details, the competing dates, September 10th versus October 14th, and especially those statue options in Oklahoma, the family group versus the empty chair.
Yeah, that empty chair is evocative.
It really is. So maybe a final thought for you to consider. How much does the choice of one specific symbol, like that empty chair suggesting dialogue, or a family portrait emphasizing faith, or one specific date, the day of death versus the day of birth, actually shape how future generations understand a public figure? When the state mandates that symbol, is it just honoring someone, or is it actively trying to direct the conversation about them for years, maybe decades to come? That's certainly something to mull over.